Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We're going to do lights over the lake, meaning in this case Northern Lights, and we'll have them on this 6-inch by 10-inch glossy cardstock. You don't have to use glossy for this one, but if you're not doing it in some sort of wet absorbent medium, I would recommend going for something other than the dye-based inks in terms of a process, but you can go for the same type of layout. So if you're working on matte paper, in other words, you can go for something like watercolors, pan pastels, that type of thing, colored pencils. But for this one, I'm just trying to go for the kind of glossiest and deepest use of dye-based inks that I can get. And glossy cardstock provides that because it keeps more of the media on the surface just because it's coated. All right. Okay. Hello, Linda. How are you? All right. So on this one, Linda, I'm going to use Stays On ink here. I was thinking about putting my colors down first and just stamping right over the top of them with dye-based black ink, but I want to do a bunch of shadows underneath these trees, and I figured if I do that, then and all these other colors are laid down with the amount of ink that I'm going to be using, I just thought it would take too long to dry, so I thought maybe I should do it just right from the beginning. But then I didn't want to have to wait for this to dry. Hello, Patty. I didn't want to have to wait for this to dry, so Stays On. All right. So I hope everyone's having a good week or had a good week. Re-inked. I just re-inked my Stays On just now. I'm going to have this mousse down here. It's, I've done this composition before, but I don't know. I just felt like doing Northern Lights. I've been inspired by seeing some photographs of some. I'm now, after those Northern Lights events that we've had over the last, 6, 7 months at this point in time. I subscribed to, I think it was the Southern Lights Facebook group, so I'm seeing posts by them, and it's kind of interesting. Those Southern Lights are all, it seems like they're different colors. There's like these cranberry red colors, things like that. I'm just going to be probably going for my greenish tinge one, but I don't know, just all kinds of cool looking visuals from that. Hello, Bill. Hello, Bonnie. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's in here, is in the LA Pacific Palisades area or anywhere affected by fires. Hope all that's going well. I haven't checked the latest news, but let me see, I'm wiping that off. I need a couple more impressions of this, though. There's been such big news events up in the Los Angeles area that I haven't really kept up to date with any other types of things going on around the country. All right, the large kind of lakeside image here. Stamped almost in its entirety here. Here it's about 2/3 going from the left side of the composition. All right, and let's see. One of the things I did is with this stamp right here, I really imagined it for a foreground as well. So it's tall enough of an image that we can use it for that, but also use it for when it's used with itself, kind of a mid-ground type of area. I guess I could be stamped up high for a background too. If need be. If you really want to push space, you'd use the, you'd use the smaller one though up here. But on this one right here, we really want to feature a lot of those, kind of that swirling type of light type of thing. Okay, now I'm not doing this just for the scene too. I got those, actually now that I think about it, I don't know how they'll work on here, but I got those metallic watercolor paints, and I want to have some foundation scenes to experiment with those metallic inks, and it has that, it's those kind of those tab types of watercolors, but they're metallic, so they'll have a little bit of a shimmer to it. But I'm going to have these northern lights up here, or other types of like sunset types of things going on, and I want to experiment with those shimmery types of paints laid probably over the top of my dye-based ink applications, possibly things like colored pencils or alcohol ink coloring areas. If I'm using those ones, though, I'm usually doing it multimedia. But I want to get those shimmering tones that you would see in like water types of reflective water situations. So yeah, this one will provide that for like the green, yellowy tones, perhaps. Yeah, yeah, Bill, isn't that crazy? So, my son and I just went out hiking at this lake on Wednesday, this our local lake here, and the Fox News truck was out there, and they were doing a report on the lake water level. But and then we watched the report later on that night, and the story was on a fire that happened right here in this whole surrounding community too. I mean, but I couldn't remember because it was from 2007. The fire ripped through this whole area, but I had kind of forgotten about that one. I think in terms of square miles, the one here was bigger than the one up there, but the one up there probably, had a lot more structure damage. But isn't that crazy, though? It's going to take so many years to rebuild that area. Okay, so we have 4 of these right here. This moose is going to go right in here. Okay. Actually, that looks a little bit too big now with these trees here, and these ones right here. Let's go smaller with this one here. Let's go with this one. Okay, so if you just joined in, I'm doing this with the, I'm stamping this all in StazOn ink, just so I can go right over the top of all of this with my dye-based inks and not worry about any type of smearing. Now, you could do it too, where you just do, the thing that I'm going to do on here, you can do it first, and then what you do is you stamp your imagery right over the top of all of those colors that you've already laid down, okay? But the thing is, I want to add in some shadows underneath here. And in a live stream like this, if I laid all these thick layers of background coloring on here, and then I stamp these out, and then start adding shadows underneath here, I thought inevitably I'm going to kind of smear some of the bottom portion of these. Probably, I guess it wouldn't be too bad, but like if I'm adding shadows down here, then I'm going to go into this one. And this little top of the tree, especially on the edges right here, it's going to be really kind of wet on the outside and damp. And then I would, I'd want to add the shadow in here and make that darker, but it would smear this if I stamped it. Even if I stamped it in StazOn ink, it would be kind of like sitting on top of a bunch of wet dye-based inks, and I just don't want to take a chance of that smearing. Now watch my, I go into this one and it smears, but it shouldn't, because these are solvent inks, and that it shouldn't go back into solution with water-based media. All right, let's see here. Let's go a little bit higher with this one here, about like so. All right, now I'm just going to leave this kind of open up here. I normally put like another lake area on the other side of that, but I want this to really feature a lot of sky, so it's going to be more kind of a dreamy type of thing. than one based on, you know, whatever true, you know, surface sky dynamics, okay? So we'll have like the sky where it's like, you know, the sky kind of just merges with surface, okay? Or there's no difference. Hello, Caroline, how are you? All right, so I'm gonna do green. Oh, good. I already happen to have all this kind of laid out right here. Here, we'll throw this one in here. A peeled paint. Here's a good range of real kind of emerald toned greens right here. Let's see, let's move into, I think 2025, it'll be time to get some new inks. I'll try some of those other ones, the Catherine Poolers, or maybe some other distress, Memento colors, potentially. I haven't really needed to for a long time, though. Okay, now, so I need some brightness in here, but let's just start off with those. So I could probably use some more darker tones, really super dark greens, whatever the darkest green Memento would be. Unless like a Christmas green is as dark as it gets. Okay, let's line this up. This is going from roughly, everyone knows that blue is a component of green, right? So you can just kind of throw those into the mix. So this is going from, you know, light to dark that way, okay? And you can do this. This doesn't look like it belongs in here, but this blue, these two blues in here will just turn this kind of green more into a little bit of an aqua color, probably. You know, it just depends on how much you use of each one of these, though. But light to dark like that. Okay, now these two right here, the distress inks, are just, they're really light, and I'm going to use these as a foundation color. Walnut stain, I mean, it doesn't really relate to this one, but it provides a nice warm tone. Antique linen, old paper, I always mention those ones because they're a light, kind of tannish, warm, earthy color, and they really provide a nice foundation. If you just go with all bright tones, it kind of looks a little bit weird. It can look kind of cool too, but I tend to like it a little bit more. I find it richer if you have kind of a foundation coat underneath those types of tones, even if it's like all blue or something like that. If you have a little bit of a warmth in there, even though it doesn't really read to the eye, it just looks like a richer looking, really, it's color scheme, but it's also temperature scheme as well when you throw in something like this. Because these ones right here, I guess these ones are a little bit warm, but a lot of these colors are kind of more neutral and maybe cooler, you know, like a turquoise or something like that. Okay, so let's just get this coated here. You know, I can kind of think of a little bit of lights and darks in here getting established with these first two colors, but they're going to be pretty light in terms of the overall look of this piece. So I'm not going to be too concerned about it. That looks like really dark, but this really isn't. Okay, now another thing too, as you'll be able to see when I'm doing this, is I'm not worried about getting this on here. Now, if this is, you know, if I had a re-inker for this one, it'd be better. Actually, let me see if I have something related to this. This is just going to take forever doing it like this because my walnut stain is a little bit dry. Here's another thing too, if you're kind of dry on some ink. This is Peach Bellini, which is kind of like a orangish color. Or if you have like antique linen, but you don't have the walnut stain or something, you know, or just, you can go with another brand too, as long as it's the same type of ink. You just add it to it like that. And this color's lighter than this one, or it should be. It's just going to be much more saturated. It's probably going to be a little bit more reddish in tinge, but see that right there, how fast it goes on. So you can just kind of mix and match. Okay, now here's the thing. I'm going to kind of get this kind of like S-curvy type of thing going. I think that looks good in terms of Northern Lights, and it gets like movement into your sky. So every time, kind of just decide kind of like a general direction. And this is also one of those things where you can add in kind of the gesture of the hand, and it makes it things potentially a little bit more graceful. I say potentially because you know, if I'm like if I start applying it really kind of awkwardly, that is like less graceful. So you have like awkward northern lights. Okay, now see this right here. This is going this way. My hand naturally moves like this, right? You know, my wrist. So I'm flipping this because I can apply this easier this way, and I have this curve going down here, okay? And then I'll have it kind of going like this down here, but this isn't quite as graceful, so you just flip it around and always kind of turn your piece in the direction of in the direction that it's going to be the most applicable for whatever, in this case, movement you want or application angle you want, okay? There's less kind of fatigue. Now, if you're just doing a couple strokes, it's not going to matter. But this, you know, by the time I get done with this, it's probably going to be like, I don't know, like 1,000 of these, you know, that's going to happen over the course of this next, I don't know, whatever, half hour or something like that, okay? Okay, so there's going to be some shadows down here. Okay, so I'll kind of darken in some of that. I guess this is kind of establishing a little bit of a lighting scheme right here. Here's some, like these fingery types of things like that. Going up there, I'll kind of darken in a little bit of this. Now remember, this is just the first color, and it's going to be the lightest one, so it's, you know, it's not very... It's visible, but in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be very, very, I don't know, subdued in terms of if you can see any of this, you know, in the end result after all these other colors that we're going to apply on top. And these ones are just, you know, some of them. Oh, I might skip some because some are going to be just too close to the previous color, but, you know, where it's not going to matter if I add them in or not, so I'll just jump to the next darker tone. All right, let's see. That is it for that. We're done with a walnut stain. This is looking pretty saturated here. With the help of that re-inker, it goes really fast. Okay. Let's see, should I use the same paper towel? Let's just use the same paper towel. Okay, slight change in hue. I'm seeing a lot of fake, I don't know about fake, but it's AI created visuals posted. And there's a lot of these northern light type of things going on. So people post these pseudo photographs, you know, and it's like so obviously not, you know, like a photographic, you know, real version of it. I mean, they look really cool though. I don't have any problem with it, but I just don't like them kind of trying to pass it off as if it were, you know, it's like taken through, you know, typical lens or whatever. But there's all these different colors, you know, that they usually show in those ones. Like I said, you know, it's you know, it's cool. But it's more like sci-fi art though. But I see those on like Facebook all the time. Some of them you can't tell though, because usually when you're doing this, you know, like a photographer, even if they are photographing something like Northern Lights, they're going to enhance it a little bit in post-production, you know, just to really emphasize, you know, and that's part of the photographic process is editing, you know. Yeah, some people have a problem with that, but I don't have any problem with that because even in, when I was taking photography and, in the dark room, you're adjusting, what you took down on a, piece of 35 millimeter film just because you couldn't, in the blink of an eye, you don't have time to set up everything with studio lighting or everything like that, out in the streets. So you're adjusting for exposure. They do these things called dodge and burn. You're emphasizing something a little bit more. So it's like in rubber stamp art or something like that, or when we're doing something like this, I'm going to emphasize this moose here by making the area around it a little bit darker. You want something to stand out, a person or a quote, a word stamp, whatever. Then you just kind of, one easy way is to do it is to manipulate things in terms of value, okay? Lights and darks, you put a spotlight on it. All right, I think that is it for the peel paint. Let's go a little bit more. Let's see. I guess I can go a little bit darker. If you can get kind of darker in your dark areas with this type of coloring, using your existing color, I would kind of typically recommend adding more of that color before you jump to the next tone. Now, sometimes you might just, if it's a certain type of color, like I don't want it looking so blue-green, then you use less blues or not, don't use any blues at all. Distress oxide, practicing your northern lights, great. With those distress oxides too, you can do that type of thing with your whatever water reactive types of things. I think if I was doing water reactive stuff, I would lay stuff down that I would take like a large brush and I would start dry brushing with a little bit of water. Not too much, and then I would start going into it, and if you like it, then add more water and do like different strokes like that and have that water reactive type of thing going. Or if you're doing this type of thing with alcohol inks, I wouldn't do it on this big of a page right here, but I would take my blender pen or just a lighter color of whatever you laid down if it's streaky like that. Or you can take like a cotton ball or something like that with a little bit of alcohol in it and do these streaks back up into it and have that alcohol kind of go back into solution, and you can do all these types of textures in there. So you know all these types of things like this. You can do something like this in pan pastels or something like that. So in terms of how I'm adding these inks down right here, I mean, it is somewhat of a technique, based on what I'm using here, but you can go for these similar visuals, but you're just doing a little bit of a different kind of maybe sequencing, with different types of ink sometimes, okay? Maybe you don't work, in pastels, you might work from dark to light instead of light to dark, and these are the things that you're lighting. You're doing the pastels in light greens and white maybe, or something like that, over the top of darker tones, because those ones are more opaque. And here I'm working with transparent colors, so I'm building them up light to dark. All right, what color is this? I don't even know. Celery, okay. There are certain colors that Marvy released. I think they released like 30 something or something like that initially, and those ones are the ones that we were using for a long time. Then they released a few more in pad form, but I never really got their names down. It's like too late to kind of use it, put it like in memory. It's like I ran out of hard drive space in my head or something. All right, there's celery right there. Doesn't look northern lighty at all, right? But this is where you just kind of start building it up, so these tones right here, I might not be able to see a lot of this I don't know, whatever, kind of a brownish, um, not necessarily like olive, but those types of tones in the. But this is kind of the foundation that will help if it works to create this kind of glowing type of illusion, color illusion. You know, it's when you lay down all of these um, analogous colors next to each other. In this case, it's over the top of one another. But that that foundation right there through all of the other transparent colors on top, hopefully it lends itself to a nice, rich end result surface. All right, let me switch. Oh, I should have here. I'm going to switch to a different color here. So I'm switching to a new paper towel. I thought that color right there, I don't necessarily want that in here. If I put a little bit of green on there, it wouldn't really matter, but let's just switch right here. I kind of flatten this out a little bit like this. You can use sponges or whatever you want to. Let me see something here. Here, I have a lighter blue too. I'm just going to get this a little bit moist. If you don't have this too, you can put a little, don't put a lot, but you can put a little water sometimes. It'll dilute it and the inks won't be as bright, but I'm just talking about the foundation color for like a new color or something. And it'll just help you spread it around, you know, just that initial kind of moisture, you know, whatever, moisturization of the applicator. Paper towels, sponges, whatever, you know. If you try to add it when it's kind of, you know, if you don't have enough ink on here, when you start going like this, it feels like weird. It feels kind of really dry. It's not really smooth, you know. And that's even on glossy cardstock right there, okay? So get a little bit moist. Or when you first start applying it, you're thinking, hey, this is like kind of awkward, you know what I mean? Because the paper is absorbing your ink. It doesn't feel too smooth, you know. But when you get into like, you know, the page is starting to get a little bit more saturated. It feels different now, you know. So just give it a few times, you know what I mean? If I'm talking to, you know, people if you haven't done this before. But what really helps though, like I always say, is the if you have a re-inker, it just goes like so much faster. And then you get a good dollop of ink on the surface, but it's also kind of penetrating the pulp of the paper a little bit. Okay, so this is the blue. Look at that blue though. That blue is kind of cool in there. It kind of gives it that, I don't know, like a little bit of a, like an iridescent feel. I don't know how long it's going to stay there because I'm going to go over the top of it, but it still looks really good. The blue that I'll use eventually, exclusively, from the blues that I know, that I've already experimented with. There might be some other ones that are better, I don't know. But the next one that I'll kind of use is the tumbled glass one in terms of a really light, real crystal, you know, blue. Fairly bright, you know. It's not super bright of a color, but that one's a really good one. And that's the Distress Ink version of that real light blue. Okay, now this is where it's starting to happen for me. This color right here, Jungle Rain, it's like the real kind of preliminary kind of look, I guess, that I'm going after. This deep richness. It's starting to kind of glow, I guess, a little bit more. And it's not glowing here, but I can just tell this is the one that did it. It's a little bit darker, so the lighter tones are kind of, it's influence. It's starting to influence the surface, and the more the darker you go, you know, the more of that you'll get. Right down here, I'm kind of like torn between. I'm kind of torn between this water. It's usually like horizontal with these what striations in the water like this. Or do I keep the flow going like this? So I've kind of been going like this a little bit, going, but that's kind of like perpendicular to the stroke. So I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to have it both ways, I guess. I'm kind of like streaking in here. Maybe I should use like I have this stamp called Shimmering Water that maybe I should do these streaky things and then go back over it and give it a little bit of texture with the Shimmering Water. Or like water pattern, small, that type of thing. So those are those little kind of like a whatever design kind of things, that are occurring to me. If you, I don't know, you call it a struggle or something like that. It's kind of like a whatever version that I'm trying to decide here, and that's, I don't know, I've been thinking about that for the last few minutes as one of those little things that I'll have to kind of decide, especially when I get into the darker tones where we'll be able to see, like a clear, directional application of this ink on here. Okay, now here I'm going to start doing something a little bit different. Instead of just the streaky thing like going across right here, I want to kind of centralize things a little bit more. So I'm kind of darkening this area right down here so it's not just uniform across the whole thing. These Northern Lights things that I do, they don't look like Northern Lights because it's usually these hovering kind of curtains up in the sky, so it's darker down below. Then you have these like this up here. But I adjust mine. I have it kind of lighter on the horizon. I guess that can exist, but you usually see it kind of up in the sky a little bit more. So it goes light, dark. Dark, light, dark. Okay. But the thing is, I have these trees and everything like that. I want those to show up, so I usually put it lighter behind whatever those background elements are in scenes. All right, that is it for Jungle Green. Let's see. This one's probably lighter than these colors, but it's really bright, so it's really intense. And it's a good one to add in if you like intensity in your greens, like in grasses or something like that. Like these are the colors I would use in grasses too. I usually go with brown tones and greens and everything like that. Don't I say hello to Jeannie? Jeannie, Sheila, good to see ya. Max Headroom, have to delete fires. Catherine, how are you? Or did I ever say that? Hello, military mom. Sheila doing great with the pieces. How was the retreat from your output? It looked like you had fun, for sure. If you definitely had a experimenting time. Well, I don't know how many pieces those were that you posted. I don't know. It looked like there was, I don't know. It looked like there was like 30 of them or something like that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was closer to 20. In different techniques too. Pretty cool, pretty awesome. All right, there we go like that. I think this pad's a little bit dry, maybe. Doesn't seem as bright to me. I think we're a little bit dry though. Yeah. Let me see if I happen to have a light green here in re-inker form. All right, let me see something here. Okay, if this took me like 3 more seconds, I was going to do it. Here's some different greens I have on my shelf right here. Here's another light green. This light green is one of those that I almost never stamp anything out in it because it's like neon green or something like that. It's just way too bright. But this is one of those colors, and it's not like a super popular color either. Like blues are all sold out at this point in time with the Marvy pads and re-inkers. Marco's paper still has a lot of the re-inkers, and Marvy, their website, still has some re-inkers. But this light green's a really good one. I haven't found many more brighter greens, okay, than this one. So if you add this into the mix of any other brand of inks, you'll brighten them all up. Okay, so this is what this one looks like. Now this one's a little bit polluted with those other colors in here, but it's a pretty bright tone like that. And that'll stay pretty much that brightness right there. Some other ones might be at a similar hue and a similar value, but they might not be as bright. So that's the color that can really lend, even if it's kind of like buried in other greens, it'll give it a nice glow and radiance to your color scheme. So greens and grasses and things like that. It's one that I usually use in the mix. And when I don't use it, it feels like I'm kind of missing something. It doesn't mean I want everything really bright, but I want little punches of, radiance to that color scheme. And, for like scenic stamping, there's a lot of greens that we typically use. So you can get one of those. Pretty recommended. There might be other ones out there. I haven't gotten around to trying them out, from some other companies. See, down here I kind of used it dull, but see, it's kind of glowing down here a little bit more, and I put it like right in here. I should have done like some on the right side and none on the left or something like that, just so you can see the difference before I went over the whole thing. But see that glow right there? So see, I can get even darker or more saturated if I want to right in there. It's not going to look like that because I'm going to go over it with like darker tones and even black right in there. But it should kind of influence that area. See, that's how it's really starting to kind of like radiate a little bit more now. When you put analogous colors next to each other, or in this case, like I said, over each other like this, it's supposed to create this color glow we learned in design classes. And if you put complementary colors right next to each other, it creates a color vibration right in the middle. But this one's almost like vibrating to me in some ways. It's almost like glowing so hard it almost kind of maybe not this one right now, but sometimes in the past. All right, sometimes you can create a cool looking, scrap piece of paper like that too. All these colors that you're laying down. All right, so that was that. Let's see here. Here's a pale green. Now that's a dull green and it's lighter than this one. Let's just see if that'll kind of add anything to it. Now it shouldn't like dull everything out, but it might add a little bit of richness just with a little bit of a different kind of intensity. It's a little bit darker though, huh? Even though it's pale green, because it's, like I said, it's not making something lighter, it's just kind of overlapping, so two light colors overlapped, I guess, make a darker one. So you can see that right there. So I'm going a little bit more streaky as opposed to overall coloring the darker I go. Although pale green still, like I said, it's still very light. Oh, that's helping right now. Look at this. See this? I'm starting to, this color right here is starting to establish that kind of a, more of a, kind of a deeper shadowy area now. Like that, right in there. Yeah. Okay. And let's see. Is this pine green? Yeah, this is pine green. Yeah. It's one of my pads that still looks fairly new. Okay. Remember when you go like this and you kind of add it in there, it's going to be a lot of the other colors still in there. So I'm going into pine green right here, but it's really more of those other tones. So it's just a little bit of pine green. I mean, it just depends how much you've used out of it and how wet your pad is, but kind of tested it out a little bit like that. This is, okay, now this is where if people are kind of retaining some kind of area of lightness, if they first start doing this and haven't done this before, sometimes this is where they kind of eradicate all their light. Because if you go over this with lighter tones, you can still see some lightness in there. So just kind of, kind of apply a little bit more selectively than your lighter tones, which might have been applying like this, Let's see, Catherine. Catherine, have you ever kind of referenced Northern Lights as you're working on them? If you haven't, then try to do so. Try to pick up a, like a simple color scheme or something like that. Or, maybe don't do layers like that, but get the gist of it down in terms of the movement, okay? Now, I don't go for replication, at some point in time it's just like, but if you have a foundation of kind of, you can get kind of the movement down. I mean, this is what works for me. You try to kind of replicate a little bit, but then, inevitably you're going to be going off into your own direction. And then that's the thing. And then you make your adjustments too, accordingly, aesthetic adjustments, as well as your adjustments based on whatever media you're working with. You have to kind of, you know what I mean? Like with the, the distress oxides or something like that. It depends on how you're going to use them. Are you going to apply them, or are you going to do that water reactive type of texturing on them after they've been applied? Then sometimes you have to kind of, compensate for that. If you're going to add some of that texturing in there and dissolve some of those things, they're going to probably get lighter, so that do you have to go a little bit darker, or do you do that water reactive type of thing over it? It starts to kind of separate a little bit like that, and then you go over that again with some additional distress oxides, and add it in over the top of that, so, all those little types of things like that, just to, and then see if, whatever, see if one of them, or certain parts of it, really resonate with you in terms of, your own personal aesthetics. Like I've tried different color schemes before, and just referencing photographs. Like there's the purplish one. There's a purplish kind of color scheme I see a lot in Northern Lights with green, purple and green. I really love the look of that one. I wouldn't say I ever achieved anything close to that from a realistic standpoint. I've some pretty cool kind of end results, but I wouldn't say they were really, Northern Light looking. You look like a AI type of notion of it. Come up with a, you type in the parameters, Northern Lights, purple, magenta tones or something like that, and out comes something totally unrealistic, which is what mine look like in those tones. But it's fun to do, though, isn't it? Well, that's probably why you've been doing them, though, because it's like a fun process. It was a great retreat. Everyone scrapbooked but me. Nah, you didn't have time to scrapbook not with that output. I've been to just scenic stamping retreats before, okay? With a lot of like seasoned scenic stampers, that taught scenic stamping, and I don't know, it's like you like tripled our output, in terms of finished pieces. Okay, then look at this blue right in here. Isn't that fun? So I'm adding that blue right over here. I don't know, you can probably tell, the difference between over here and over here. Now it doesn't look like this blue, right? Because it's over the top of that green. See like that right there? Let's add it up top right here. You don't have to add it over everything. You can go for some, variation too. Maybe I'll just leave this whole area right in here untouched with this blue, just, to give it a little bit of a different look. And, if I want it, it's like, if I look at it, at some point in time, it's like, yeah, it's missing it. Then I'll, you can always add it in. But these are really blended in because this is really pretty saturated with tone at this point in time. Hello, Donna. Retreats once a year, and the same year the only one with stamping. Retreats are the best. Where was the retreat then? Not city, but was it like at a? Were you able to leave all your things out? Where you were working like a workstation, or did you have to kind of like clean up after? It was multi-day, right? Or were you watching the live from the retreat last week? I can't remember, or if it started on. I can't remember now if it started on Saturday. Okay, so this is the number 10 blue. If you can get a really, really bright blue around this tone right here, that's really good for green tones too, and blue tones too, of course. But blues and purples and those types of color schemes or skies. This blue right here too, I often stamp out things like clouds in this color right here. So it's somewhat of a medium toned bluish color. This one's called light blue. The Memento is a Bahama blue. The Bahama blue, though, is a little bit too light for me. It's the right version of the hue, blue, but I like it a little bit darker. Just because I've been using the the Marvy one for a long time, but it's like a really good blue. But it's not just the blue in itself. It's the blue in conjunction with pinks for violet tones. It's the blue in conjunction with greens for your darker greens or blue greens, cool greens, that type of thing. It's one of the great things. Always mix, layer your pads. If you want to get a lot of mileage out of them, then you mix the colors to get those in-between versions of, your different hues out there. Yeah, and brands. You can mix and match, mix and match brands too. All right, so there's the blue right there. It looks like down here, I don't have like any, I don't really have any kind of texture. I'm not really streaking too much like one way or another. All right, let's see, that was the, I've gone through these. Okay, this one's a Prussian blue. I can't remember if I've re-inked this one. I know I needed to at one point in time. It looks like I still need to. I haven't looked for my Prussian blue after I've signed off of these live streams, but that's pretty dark right there. Maybe it's better that it's kind of dry, because this Prussian blue really applies really fast onto the paper. I've mentioned this before too. It's like, I don't know what it is with really dark blues, but that Blueprint Sketch Distress ink, it really stains. You can tell, like if I get a little bit on my finger too, it really stains my skin. You know, where you got to scrub it off a little bit more. And the Distress ink, or no, Adirondack Lights, it was the denim, I think it was. And then the Prussian blue, there must be something to the chemistry of it. It's like the molecules or something like that, or smaller or something like that. So they penetrate even a wet surface, you know what I mean? Faster than a lot of other colors. I guess that's good because, you know, if you're getting dark, it means that you want things dark, but sometimes it almost like happens a little bit too fast. Or you have to apply it kind of in a drier application rate, you know. I guess that being said, when you re-ink your dark tones like this, just put a few drops on there, unless you're using it all the time to like stamp imagery. All right, let's see. Getting a little bit darker, especially the corners, okay, and in the shadow areas. Yeah, when I think about those retreats, those are always the best times. And I like the fact that I didn't have to travel. If I was, you know, teaching at the retreats, the retreats that I ended up going to, the scenic stamping ones were not instructional ones. It was just a bunch of us getting together. But even the instructional ones, I just like the fact that, because I was usually, when you used to travel, if you were like teaching classes all over the place, like I was traveling around different stores. So if I went to a different state, I'd teach in one store and, you know, pack up, hit the road, and then the next day you'd be teaching in some other city, you know, a few hours away or something like that. But the retreats, you know, you're just all staying in the same place, so those are always really nice. It was a lot more relaxing. And everyone's like having a good time, you know, unless there was like a fight that broke out. Which it never did. All right, so there's the Prussian blue there, okay? The darker you take it over here, or wherever in a scene, the light areas are going to look by contrast. So that keeps looking lighter and lighter the darker I take it on the perimeter. I don't know if this is like too light in here. It might be, but I'll go back in and I'll hit it with some maybe that real light bright green. Okay, black right here. I just re-inked this, so it's probably like way too juicy. So I'll just take a little of this on here like that. Okay, I just inked up a little edge like right here, okay? And I can just kind of test it out like that. Can you see it right there? I just came on like this, and I'm using the edge of it as opposed to doing the whole thing. So I just kind of use the edge. And same thing if you're using like a sponge applicator, then just use it on its edge like this. This is how you do it right here. It's for the easiest. This works for me. So, and this is why I did it with the stylus tools too, or any kind of sponge applicator. I hit it on the edge like this. Here, like this. Okay. Then I just kind of spread this out like this, okay? So it's like that initial thing, but see, it's getting transitioned out on the side as well as the length of it like that. And that's how you get these kind of streaky types of curtainy, feathery types of applications of whatever ink you're doing, you know, as opposed to this, you know what I mean, which is the full amount of it. So like I said, anything. So you can take advantage of like a 90-degree angle cutout sponge or something like that. You just kind of use it on its edge, and because it's malleable, it'll you can kind of here like that, right? And then you just kind of blend it out. Like that, and you do it with a drier version of it like that. I almost went like too dark with that right there. Okay, let's see. A little bit more around the edge to create containment of all the different imagery like that. Look at that black like that, huh? If you just joined in, I stamped out my imagery with stays on, just because that was going to be kind of wet. And you can see all these streaky kind of things that I'm going right over the tops of imagery with. Now, what I was saying too when I first started this off is you could do all these kind of tones in the background or do it halfway, then stamp your imagery so you know where it's going to be and where to add the shadows, and then just go with the darker tones. But I just didn't want to have to wait for these stamped images to dry, especially in a live stream, okay? But a lot of times I just do these kind of streaky things in the background that I just stamp right over it with dark inks, and I just set it aside and whatever, let it dry overnight or whatever with dye-based inks. But the stays on, the stays on did pretty good. This one right here stamped a little bit lighter than what I wanted with the stays on. But by the time I go over the top of it with all those tones, it's dark enough anyway, so it's not really a big deal. But some people, it's like, oh my God, it's stamped out at like an 80% gray as opposed to now it looks like it's just 100% black like any. Some people might stamp that at initially. It didn't stamp out dark, and they might like, okay, I messed up, I'm tossing it, But I just know that with all these other tones that we're going to add over the top of it, it's not going to matter. Now, if it sends it like 5% gray, then maybe you're doing like a foggy day or something like that instead of these northern lights. So, but usually by the time you do all your coloring and stuff like that, those initial types of maybe perceived blunders, they're really not, it's just, they're going to cover it up anyway. Or you can cover up some stuff, that you don't want. You can de-emphasize a lot of things. At this point in time, this isn't getting much darker if I'm streaking it like this because it's just, I'm wiping it. I'm applying some, but I'm kind of wiping it off the page because this is kind of wet up here. So you just kind of build it up a little bit more with this tapping kind of motion too. You can probably use different applicators too for different textures maybe. Maybe I should get into doing stuff with like a paper towel like this for these smooth applications and going with like a sea sponge or something like that for different textures and different areas. Maybe not on something like this, but on other scenes, you know, like maybe do the sky a different applicator than you do down on the ground where you want more texture, maybe. That's something that I really haven't really experimented with, textural variation with your applicator, different applicators. All right. I think that is dark enough right there. Let's go in. This looks a little bit light in here. Let's go in here. Let's take a little bit more of that, maybe that peel paint, maybe. And I'll encroach on that light area. Let's see. The peeled paint is nice and, you know, all those distress things. No, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are that kind of duller, lighter version, earthy version of whatever hue they're depicting. It looks kind of bright, actually. Okay, it's a little bit earthy. I came down here a little bit more. Like that. Let me try something out. Let me go back to this really super bright. Well, maybe it's not so bright anymore. Here's some of it right here. I built up a lot of other colors over the top, but it looks like on the other side of this paper towel, there's still this straight green. I'm going to do something right here. Okay, do you see this like right in here? I mean, I kind of like that. It kind of starts to get a little bit of a watercolory look. But I'm going to come in here and just blend in here a little bit, and I'll see if it does anything. Yeah, look at that. Can you see that green right there? I don't know if it's going to stay that way, but maybe if I spray seal soon after application. I'm not talking about like, you know, like 2 minutes later or something like that, but yeah, look at that. Now I'm getting these streaks back up into the wet black too. That actually looks like it's glowing a bit more. Yeah, look at that right here. Right there. Now, I don't know if you can do that. You probably can't do that on like a non-glossy, because the glossy is retaining the moisture and the media on the surface more. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much color you lay down and how much something's how fast something's drying. I don't know if we're doing this streak of light green back up into black in like Arizona, where everything might be drying a lot faster. Look at that now. See that right up in those areas like that. It's almost like ghostly. Let's add some into the shadows right down here. That's almost too wet. Okay. That, right? More than like a northern lights, it looks like some kind of like green bow or something like that. It reminds me of like going to these waterfalls at night under a full moon in Yosemite, and they call them moon bows. I mean, it doesn't look like that, like glowing or something like that, but just this kind of this arcing light thing that was, you know, in the mist. That was kind of cool. All right, let's see. Let's get some of the trees a little bit more rendered. Okay, light green, dark green right here. I looked at tutorials and tried my own photos. Okay, Kathy. Yeah. So what? Yeah, I don't know. You have to. What? I guess you're gonna have to. Let's see. It's just like my brain can't understand how it should look. I don't know. I guess what. One of the things I'd ask is, what are the things about the Northern Lights that you're looking for, Catherine? What part of it, do you like? It could be the whole thing too, but if is there a specific color or something like that? And then, I would really try to kind of emphasize the element that really appeals to you. I mean, ideally you want to get the whole thing, but if you kind of concentrate on those things that you're kind of going after specifically, and then really emphasize it, a lot of times the other things kind of just fall into place. Okay, so I'm going in with this. I don't have to do too much of this, but I'm going into these lighter trees right in here and kind of adding in a little bit of extra layering, I guess, like this. Okay. So I'm hitting it with an alcohol ink, like a light one. It's like this color right here. Okay. And then I'll go into here, and in these darker sides, see these trees right here? On the bottom side of those leaf clusters, it's darker, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'll make those. I'm not going to leave it like this because that looks terrible. But I'll do this. Now, on some of these, I'm not hitting. I'm just kind of adding a dollop of ink. Okay, it's not like, oh my God, I missed the bottom side of that branch, And then what you do is you just go back in with your lighter one again, and then you just blend out that shadow a little bit more, like this. So you're going back in and it's putting, and this is where the glossy cardstock comes into play too. It puts that ink back into solution. It really makes it easy to do. Not that background in here, but if you're doing this type of alcohol work and alcohol blending, it really works really well on photo paper too, because all of that alcohol ink stays on the surface of that emulsion coated photo paper. This is not photo paper, this is glossy cardstock. But on top of the photo paper, it's really fun to work with this. It gets it really a little bit too harsh sometimes though, but then I just go back in and I add a little bit of white pigment ink over the top of it, or I blend it out with paint pens, like little dots in there. Okay, so here's some paint pen. I think these two are the same color right here. We'll do this right here and add it into some of the highlights on some of those trees. I won't add too much down here because I think I might want to add in some of that metallic watercolor paint to see if I can get in some glistening, shimmery, visible but subtle applications of reflective. I don't know what's in that metallic paint, It's not metal, right? Is it mica or something like that? It's like what was that brand of, not Luna Lights, that was Stamp Oasis, I think. Everyone started coming out with that mica-based, like watercolory thing. There's this whole company that had, that was based on that shimmery thing. Man, they were so busy selling everywhere. And they were hand mixing everything too, I think, at their warehouse. But I want to get some of that shimmery, some of those shimmery tones down in here. Okay, so we darkened, or kind of, with the darker alcohol pen, and then these two right here are kind of roughly the same hue. This one's alcohol and this one's acrylic. Let's see, let me shake that one up a little bit more. It looks a little bit watery to me. Your Northern Lights look really good. Linda, your Northern Lights look more realistic to me than mine. They're in awe over how I could do that with paper towels, cotton balls, and and my small flat 100% cotton makeup applicator. Yeah, that's awesome. You were working you were doing your stamping magic with household items. You didn't have to have like whatever application specific tools, Although a lot of the applicators, they're only ClearSnap was the only one that really made media restarting my camera here. ClearSnap was the only one that really made that I can think of media specific tools for the stamper crafter. Okay, most of the other things that I see have all existed out there in some one industry or another. A lot of it was the art industry, little sticks or something like that, applicators, for something or another, paint usually. But then, the what, I don't know, maybe it's been 10 years at this point in time. I don't think that long though. People started using the makeup applicators. A lot of them just started like branding it though as like ink applicators, ink blending tools. Okay, and someday, which is fine. But sometimes I don't know, like a huge markup though. Sometimes instead of 50 cents, it was like $5 an applicator. And I don't like that, for those that don't know. And then they would say stuff like, oh, but yeah, no, but that's a makeup applicator. But this one's like different, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? But it was the same exact thing. But there's there's a lot of great stuff out there, Kitchen sponges, work fine too. My favorite makeup based ones were more of those dense spongy ones, like the in the past it was the like those wedges, because the foam is a nice dense consistency, and those are really fantastic for that. And then they have those I haven't used it beyond that one test I did, I think, but it was that they have those like egg-shaped ones now that have that flat edge on them sometimes. And that one to me also worked pretty good. But if I did that, I would probably have a different ball or whatever for each different hue. Okay. And I don't know, I didn't see myself having like 15 of those eggs like in front of me. I'd have to wash them off a lot more, because inevitably, like if I'm using blues on there, I'm going to go from a light blue to a darker blue. And then when I go back to the light blue, I don't want to have all that dark blue on there, so I'd have to wash it off more than just tossing out my, a quarter piece of paper towel that it took me to apply all the tones through the entire, transitioning color scheme with. Like all this I could have done like on half a paper towel, I think. That being said, the color box stylus tools were awfully nice though. They fit and they felt really good in the hand. Okay, so do you see right here, right in this kind of passageway right here, I'm adding those little highlights right into these trees right here. So you're taking light from the background and you're creeping it around in the front. Now, I don't know if I have enough white in here where I can use a little bit of, I guess I do, like right in here, there's probably some white. I can creep in a little bit of the mist or something like that, but I'm doing it right here with these little dots here. I'm doing it with the green one. I'm adding a little bit more like right around in here. And then as I come around in here into the darkness, the application of these little dots are more sparse. Like see those right here? There's like 2 dots right there. You know what I mean? Because if I had a bunch of them, it would look kind of strange. It would stand out too much by contrast. Let me see if I can. I can add. I guess that looks okay. So see right there. You know, just kind of you're creeping it around. You're dissipating it. So in the shadows right there, there's no light. So I guess you can hit it with a darker green pen too if you want to. Just so that it looks a little bit more dimensional. I don't know if it needs it though. And let's see, let's do it right here too. I'll put this in the large tree right here. If I was doing this in white, things would be a little bit more sparse in terms of my application again, okay? So this kind of opens up a lot of further detailing possibilities when you can use a full kind of spectrum of or value scale of a certain hue. So I can go with a medium green and a darker green if I wanted some highlights in here. And sometimes it's too much though, you know. So I stick with most of the times it's kind of the pastel versions of certain colors. We had a private house and watched for okay. Okay, you did it in one of those. Was it in one of those retreat houses? Do they still have those scrapbooking houses? Where someone kind of, they do it for like scrap. I don't know if it's just like a regular B&B, but this friend of mine used to teach scrapbooking classes or retreats, and there were like houses like back in those days. This is a long time ago at this point in time, but dedicated to scrapbookers, I remember. But that reminded me of that. My wife went to a couple of those. Okay, so see these little highlights right here and right in here. See this right here? This little clump of them, without those highlights there, it kind of looks a little bit flat. All right, like that. I'll add a few of these down here, like I said, but I want to add in some of those. I want to test out some of those metallics. I'm kind of hoping I can apply some of those metallic watercolors in here where you can't see it at a certain angle, but then you tilt it and it kind of shimmers a little bit. That's kind of the look I'm kind of hoping that we can do with those metallics. I don't know if they're just too hot or visible where we can do that though. All right, but see, I've added some of these little sparkles down in here in the water. It brings that water to life a lot more. And if this was grass, it would just be like texture and I would still have this in here, but it brings those areas to the life. I don't think this is a dead area down here, but there, it's just this transitioning little tones. So if you have these little sparkling things in the water, it just makes it so much more interesting looking, having the contrast and texture down there like that. Okay. All right, let's do this right here. Let's go into some Dr. Martens and let's add some thing up here. I might add I was looking at Orion, the constellation last night, and I thought I should add that back in there. I haven't done like constellation specific things. I haven't done that like too much. I think I've added like it's like Ursa Major, Cassiopeia, the ones that I kind of know what they look like, or like Orion's like really specific. Laura's not in here, is she? Laura, oh, there's Laura. I can't do like constellations because they got to be real accurate, from a astronomy perspective anytime Laura's around. Anything celestial, Laura. I don't feel quite as free, the artistic freedom, isn't quite there. Because Want to keep things accurate as possible. I'm just joking, but I do think about Laura. Where's Laura? You know, when we're talking about, you know, like lunar phases or something like that. Uh, they do astral photography and and all that jazz. Okay, let's see here. Uh, Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. It's a white. I know you guys all know this, but someone checks it out that hasn't seen these before. This is a very opaque white watercolor paint, and it's really fast drying too. So even like the smallest little speck stands out quite a bit. You can do this with other things though. We were doing these things just adding in one dot at a time type of thing, you know, with gel pens in the past. I'm going to add some of this down in the water too. Yeah, someone's getting on a tree, but see this right down here. We'll say it's kind of reflecting the sky a little bit, maybe. And let's see. Ink dries. Wait, yeah. See, Laura's out there in that dry country. She's not going back in probably with that lime green and easily going back in the black like that. See that streak right there of that light green that went up there? I don't know that, you know, Laura's doing that. Laura, you got to set up your largely, you know, really fast drying inks are really fantastic. I love going out to the convention out there, and it was like, oh my God, my inks are drying so fast. I'm not getting any type of blurred imagery or anything like that. VersaFine Claire, not Claire, but the VersaFine pad that I was using for some imagery in the foreground dried like in hours. It wasn't just out there, you know, in desert country, you know, but it was also, they had the air conditioners blasting away like crazy, so it was like super dry in there. But everything was drying like, I don't know, about 4 to 5 times faster than normal. But if you're doing like this type of thing right in here, I would really hit it twice probably. I'd probably go in with the base layers with re-inker fluid. I'd add in some tones while it's still going, and then I would go back to my, you know, thing like that and add more of it, and then go with your darker tones in there, just because everything's like drying really fast. That being said, you know, if things are drying really fast, you can get probably maybe even thicker buildups of colored layering, and they're applying there because it's dry. Sometimes when you get a lot of buildup, you start trying to apply and you can't because it's almost super saturated, so you have to wait for it to dry a little bit. And that happens a lot, okay? Like for me, it's like, oh my God, you know, I want to get really dark out here like that black, but I just can't because I am applying, but more than applying, I'm just kind of removing ink, okay? All right, let's see here. Let's get for a little bit of structure like this. Right, and then it's like this-ish. Down here, I don't know, I'll just like this. There's Orion right there. Can anyone point that out? All right. Okay, this is white right here. Let me see if I can go in and kind of maybe add a little bit of a lighter highlight in these trees. I don't know if you see it on your screens. Like that. Yeah, a little bit. Look at that. The tree looks a lot lighter, or the highlights do, with the white. Like that. Let's add some down in the water. I start adding it in an area where you can't really see it. Then I just kind of transition it out, just like I did this with the trees. You position the dots farther apart, concentrate a little bit more in the light, and then as you work into the shadow, spread it out a little bit more like that. All right. And okay, I think we do need to go back in and add a little bit of pigment ink in here. Everything's like super sharp. I think it looks fine, but I think it'll just look better with that little bit more of a textural range going into those soft tones like that. Let's see. It's not Pearlix, Linda. What was that? It was the name of an entire company. I think Pearlix is a line of things. I'm trying to think. Radiant Pearls, right? Was that the name of that? I don't know. Maybe that wasn't the name of the company, but Radiant Pearls was the one I was thinking of. Small flat circle on one end, and the other is pointy. Yeah. I think that's. Wait, Sheila, you're talking about that ball, like that egg one? Have you ever used the blending tips from Couture Creations? They have a fine point to them. I wonder if that's... I have something from The Moon and the Maker, the ones that make the art foamies. And I wonder if that sounds like those things to me. Those little... She has these really small, kind of detailed applicators for inks. And I don't remember if I've used those before. Anytime I start getting real kind of pointy or something like that, I guess I should try it out sometime just to go for some little bit of extra textures, especially with pigment inks or something like that. But I usually just go to, for details, I usually go to the paint pens or, alcohol pens or something like that for those types of applications. Okay, so what I'm looking at right here is the shadow right here. It's a little bit harsh, but I have that mousse in this lit area. It's like it's been spotlit by a, it's on stage. It's like a spot, I don't know, but yeah, it's in the spotlight, so I think I could put some white down there and I think it'll blend in. If I try to add this white down here, it's really going to stand out. So, but sometimes it stands out if I didn't leave any white in. It's just this kind of like this. I don't think I left too much white down there, but even like a really pale brown tone or something like that, sometimes it can look kind of awkward. So I usually like to retain some white, because this is like the one thing that I'm using. I don't know, maybe someone should come up with it'd be a really good color for a distress ink. I mean, not distress ink, but a pigment ink is like this antique linen. If this thing was in like pigment ink form like that, that would be really good. I know there's beige tones or something like that, but I think I'd want them a little bit warmer looking, like the antique linen. But if there's an antique linen pigment ink, I think that would be really awesome. All right, so adding this, we're creeping this light around this way. We did it with the paint pen. Now we're doing it with some pigment ink, so we're bringing it around this way. So I'm kind of concentrating a little bit more in the light. Then as it moves into the darkness, you just kind of tap in a little bit more. But you can see like that. Maybe I'll just do it on that background one, and we'll leave this one as is, just to kind of create a little bit more separation, texturally and value-wise. I think it looks pretty cool like that. And this one's higher up on the composition by about, and I don't know, whatever, 3/4 inch right here. So it represents something farther off in the distance if it's higher up on the composition like that usually. Okay, now you can't really see this right in here, but I got a little bit harsh with that blue coming down here. It's kind of like this, I can see like paper towel kind of texturing on there, so I'm going to soften it a little bit like this. I can still see it right through the white, but it's just not quite as present if you knock it down a little bit of value like that. I'm adding a little bit more than what I think I need to, because when I spray seal this, some of this white gets a little bit more transparent looking. And this might not be all the white that I use. I might spray seal and go over it a little bit more. And like I said, I'm going to apply some of that. I'm going to try some of that other watercolor paint on here sometime that I got. I think it was an ad on, it was like an advertisement on either Facebook or Instagram. It showed this close-up of someone like painting like butterfly wings or something like that, and it was a, you know, this real kind of thick, really shiny, glistening paint. But then when I looked at it on like Amazon or something, I didn't have really good reviews, so I got a different one that had good reviews. Okay, but anyways, yeah. See, it looks a little better, right? It's, I mean, it's a subtle little thing here. Yeah, let me go a little bit more. We'll emphasize that distance, you know, between here and there. I start really conservative, like an 1/8 of an inch in there, and I think, okay, can it, you know, if it can take it a little bit more, then I keep adding in. It's not permanent, though. I mean, on this paper, if I don't like any of it, I can just wipe it off, like, you know, at any time, even after it dries, but not after I seal it. After I seal it, it's locked down. But then if you seal it and it's locked down, you think, oh my God, it's just like too white. Then just go back in and add some, you know, alcohol markers right over the top of it again. You know, you can probably bring back some of the vibrancy or something like that if you've lost it through, you know, translucency and texture, soft, you know, that soft texture like that. Maybe when I add that little shimmery touch down here, I'm not going to do it in this video right here. I haven't even opened the, yeah, we were talking about this right here. I'm talking about these watercolor, metallic watercolors. Oh, and I got the, they're the same brand as this pen that I've been using, paint pens. And it just happened, I didn't know they had them, but I don't know, it doesn't even say the brand name on here. But it's the same brand, I think, as these pens right here that I've been using for years that have worked really fantastic. But 12 colors, metallic watercolor paint box. Here, let's see what that looks like in here. I got this like a couple of weeks ago. I just looked at it briefly online. It's like, you know, that brand has worked really fantastic. I've never had any oh yeah, Emoki. Right here. Has anyone used this type of thing before? Let's see here. Yeah, look at that. It's kind of cool. In this old box. Oh, I know why they put it in this box. Is because it came with that pen here that you add water to, and you can apply it like that. You brush into the thing. It came with 2 of those. And let's see here. It's kind of fascinating. I have no idea how you get these things out of here. Oh, okay, so these little pots right here of those metallic colors like that. And I guess this is the mixing palette, just like on those kids, you know, whatever, those peacock watercolor types of things before, though. But like something like this, maybe this metallic green. These are really tiny. I mean, this thing was like really inexpensive, so I don't expect it, you know, like this big kit here, but possibly like maybe these two colors like this, those metallics like that, added like right around in here maybe, or trailing. There's a silver, maybe not this one right here. That's like a bronze-ish color, but certainly this one right here. This would be kind of interesting up here too, huh? In those streaks up there. So this is a watercolor right here. So if I don't spray seal this off, this is kind of blending in and it's putting this dye-based ink back into solution. Maybe that you can do that, you know, and use it strategically like that so it blends in with the background more. But I think for this one, I think I'm going to seal this off. And then if I add this in here and it's like, oh, okay, I don't like it, it's going to be acrylic seal, then I can just wipe it right off. I can sponge it right off. So, yeah. Oh, and here's your color control card so you can see what it looks like. Right, that. Let me see right here. Okay, so have you ever used... Okay. Not for me. John, maybe. I don't know my constellations very well. Well, one time I did like I said, I did like a Ursa Major, Laura, and you gave me like a D- on that one. I'm just joking, folks. She didn't say that. I haven't tried Northern Lights. Ink dries way too fast. Laura, your thing would be dye-based inks, but then if I were out where you are, I would do the first two colors with a re-inker, you know, and really get that laid down, you know. Maybe close off a room and have a humidifier going on there for like 6 hours before you start too. Don't do that. If I say that, you know, some people, you know, like a year from now will say, hey, you said in this video, and then I'm thinking, what? Then I think, oh, okay, I was probably joking around, you know. But yeah, so I don't know, Laura, yeah, maybe yours would be, you know, this type of thing too, I think would be a perfect thing for like pan pastels. You know, you do all the background, then you stamp over the top of it. I think you seal the pan pastels, and then you stamp your imagery over the top of it. And then you can also color in your imagery, I think, with the alcohol inks, because the alcohol inks will apply to acrylic, you know, at least somewhat. And I think that would be a pretty good way to do it in a real arid area if you can't get that layering down. But if you know, I think I've taught out there in Arizona a lot, and that was back when I was using things like the tonal applicator, and Ken Pesha was teaching the tonal applicator, and he was getting blends pretty well. And we weren't, I don't think he and I at that point in time weren't using re-inkers for those first colors, and we were using dye-based inks too. So you just go like super heavy with those. If you wanted to try something like that, you go with the re-inker fluids and real heavy on those first two coats. And then you just redo it. Now, I had to do, you know, on some of mine, I have to redo my lightest color. By the time I get to the darkest ones, you know, or third from the darkest or something like that, it's really getting dry. So I just go back in there and I resaturate with the lightest color that I used. And I just kind of go over it just to kind of saturate, or some other people kind of mentioned that it's more like, oh, you're almost like lubricating the surface, but you're also kind of saturating the pulp, maybe not all the way through the entire page, but down a layer into the pulp of the paper. And that'll allow for those kind of like more fluid types of applications of ink back into it. I don't even know. So Linda, I don't even know what they do. I've never. So I don't have, like these like tips of inks like this. I'm trying to remember if I've used a tab watercolor at all. You would think that I did some at some point in time, but I can't remember doing doing these types of watercolors before. So I don't know. Yeah, so we look up a like metallic watercolor paints or something like that here on YouTube, and you can probably see some cool applications of them. So my whole thing is like, what consistency do I get with that if I do it in like a brush application in here? I think for my purposes though, I think it's going to be a dry brushing thing, rather than using like a real fluid one. Maybe I get gutsy or something like that for a different type of look and apply it that way. And then maybe it'd be easier for me to apply. It might not be on the glossy cardstock either. These types of things clearly, are kind of more meant towards like matte, I think, like watercolors, like watercolor paper too. It's like real super textured. But, we're stampers, so if I'm, doing stamping stuff, I want something smooth. So maybe the good what's the word I'm looking for? The good in-between type of thing is you use semi-gloss that's going to be a little bit more absorbent, or a matte, I guess matte cardstock, but it's just not texturized like watercolor paper. And we're able to absorb it. So I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about using this in the completely wrong way. But I think in that dry brushing area, I think we'll be pretty good on this if we're going for like a real subtle type of application here. And then, of course, if I've sealed this down, I'm going to have to seal that on here because it's going to be sitting on top of acrylic. In this case, for me, it's going to be the spray fixative. That mousse is in my freezer. Glad you like it, Sheila. I can't remember, Sheila. Did you do some Northern Lights in those? You had so many different techniques going in there. But this is really fun right here. So the biggest thing with this one too, just remember to retain some areas of light, whichever way you're doing it. This one I'm going more vertical. If you do this kind of horizontal, it just looks like striations in the sky, and these things look like clouds. But just keep in mind, like when I went back into this one and I added like green back into it or something like that, or another tone, it's, when you start getting to like, I don't know, maybe like the fourth or fifth layer, and don't rush it to get into these darker tones, because that's the way you get these nice glowing kind of tones, is by those undercoats. But those undercoats also set you up for like a little bit of muscle memory as you're applying it in there. And then you get those kind of, that color depth. If you're doing it this way with the dye-based inks, like I said, you can do it in other ways. But that really sets you up, and when you get into those darker tones, they apply easier, and you get a much richer end result. And then when I spray this too, that's going to be deeper than what it looks like right now. And like you'll see like these other tiny little stars, and they come out a little bit more when I spray seal this, because everything gets a little bit more saturated and deep looking that way. It's like when you stain like wood or something like that, how the grains of the wood are really visible, or a wet rock, Now this is dry to the touch and didn't dry matte looking, but it gets much more extreme looking in terms of that color depth and layering when you spray seal. Let's see, radiant pearls are a type of paint with binder already in it. Okay. Oh, Pearlix. Oh, got it. Thanks, Candy. Now, radiant pearls are long gone, right? We get shocked on a light. Oh, yeah. Mix it with water. Couture Creations. I'll have to take a look at that one, those when I get done here, and see what types of those tips are. Alcohol markers much more than dye inks. Got it. Yeah. I don't blame you, Laura. Now was that always the case, Laura? Or were you using dye-based inks more than that, before? So the people told me out, Arizona or I don't ever think I taught out in New Mexico or like Utah. Utah? Did I teach out in Utah? Maybe, but yeah, for every pad they get the re-inker for it. I think if I was to get, so Laura, I would do too, Laura, if I was doing this type of thing where you are, and if things are drying too much, I don't think I would ever use a pad. I would you just kind of you start like this, or a sponge, and you just put those dots of fluid directly onto your applicator, and you never really take from the applicator like that. That would like take too long. So you just saturate something like this, and you just keep applying from that re-inker fluid. So if I lived out where you were, I have a lot of pads. I think I've mentioned this before. The inks that I'm getting these days, because I have enough pads that I'm making my impressions from, I'm just getting the re-inkers. So a lot of the distress inks, I have a pad for it, like antique linen. But if I get another re-inker for this pad, or from this walnut stain, because I'm not stamping out imagery from these pads. I'm not inking up a stamp and stamping it out in these super light tones. I think I'm just putting these on the shelf, and I am just only using the re-inker fluid on my applicator to apply, because that's what I'm doing with those inks mostly. I'm just coloring with them. So if you just have coloring only types of inks, or, if you already have the pad, then, those are really convenient to use. But if you don't have the pad, I don't know. If you have enough, and we're mostly stamping out everything with, not everything, but, the majority of our impressions are with black ink anyway. So a lot of the colors, I use different colors if I'm stamping out like a cloud. It's in like a sunset or something like that. It's usually not in black, but it's in a warm tone, orange, pink, or something like that, or brown. But yeah, I would just get the re-inkers for that. So, yeah, I don't know. It would probably, so that would work really good for you. But for me, if I just used re-inkers only in this, by the time I got to that black, this would be so saturated right here, I wouldn't be able to apply that black in these areas and have it show, because it would just be too super saturated, I think. Unless maybe I cut down the number of inks too, like in half or something like that. So you can still get the richness from, 3 or 4 colors or something like that, though. I use dye-based inks as a base. Okay. And do okay. Yeah, that's a good way to do it too. The alcohol inks are very surface oriented too. So that's what I really like about those. And I like building them up too, so you can blend them around with I usually don't use my blender pen, but I use like a lighter color of whatever color scheme I'm trying to blend back into. Gamsol is for crayons or pencils. What was the, the Gamsol. Let's see. They're 3 inches long, fine point. Okay, got it. Hot press watercolor paper. Oh, the hot press watercolor papers. I never thought about that. I never knew some of the so they have watercolor papers that are hot press, huh? Or is that just Bristol board? Huh. It's one of those things, I know nothing about like watercoloring and, any of those types of, a lot of painting types of things I just don't know. I've worked with dyes before, like in college, with kind of like miserable results. Dyes like your Dr. Martens, or they call them Luma dyes back then, where I'm applying it with a paintbrush. which I'm not really great at. I'm a much better hard point applicator person. So that's when I'm doing certain types of things. I'm doing like a dry brush application. Even when I'm doing these types of things, it's almost like dry brush, type of thing that I'm doing in. It's just a wetter dry brush. But when I'm getting into the darker tones, it's like a dry brush kind of application because I just have much more control over it like that. I buy the blank ink spots from Amazon. I know, it makes me feel better. The blank, when does that mean, Candy? What do you like about intense watercolors? Colors are bright and permanent. Oh, okay. So that's the ink. Do I have those intense blocks? I think I do. Those sticks, right? KP sent me some of those to play around with. And I need to... Wait, do I have those? I can't remember. I'm starting to get confused. Oh, yeah, here. Intense, right? Yeah. Okay, so I need to... I don't know. Maybe that's 2025. I used one of these, I think. Very little. Yeah. So... does it say... These are permanent, though, huh? Huh. That's good, though. I don't know. I'll give those a shot, though, sometimes. I don't think it'll be on a live stream, though. Maybe this, I experiment around with that. People would be horrified if I tried some of these different techniques. I know I call it the Stampscapes lab, but they just think I should know how to do a lot of these different types of things. I always tell people, no, I don't. But, these types of videos like this, they're usually, people associate them with kind of like instruction. And not, visual terror from a failure to execute. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a shot sometime. Let's see. Okay, hot press. Yeah. Hot press is smooth. Yeah. We always used to use Bristol board for that. I always liked hot press illustration board. But I didn't know there was watercolor hot press. I thought that's like going against kind of the entire spirit of watercolors, but it's probably really absorbent, but it just happens to be smooth, I guess, huh? That's pretty cool. Boy, yeah. I wonder if I have some watercolor paper still. It used to be like required for school for everything we were doing. We'd get those watercolor pads, where you cut off one piece and you're working on one and it's stretched on the edges. And then you cut out that one. You can get. I wonder if I have any of that because I certainly haven't done any since then, Let's see. Sticks are great on art foamies. I don't have it in front of me. Our Arabic gum. Yeah, what is that? I know that term from art school. I never used it, though, that Arabic gum. It was something that... Don't people use... I think people use that Arabic gum. I think that's one of those things that you use in oil painting, too, right? There are hot and cold press watercolor papers. Okay. I gotta try some of that hot pressed watercolor paper maybe with some of this stuff. I'll do like 2x2 inch pieces. the little ink pads. Little ink pads. Then I use my reinkers on the blank ink spots. Ah, okay. Are you talking about the blank ink spots on those pads? You're talking about like these little things in here? Like these little areas in here? Like the palette area? I'm confused. You see, there's all these like things I don't play around with like hardly at all. You know, I even forgot that I had the ink tints there briefly. I knew Keepy sent out some stickers or something like that, but it's time I experiment around with that a lot more. So, but yeah, that hot press watercolor paper sounds like the thing, especially for something like this. I do love the look, I should say, of watercolors. I love watercolor sketches and things like that out in the field and that type of thing. What they call it, California Impressionism. I love those quick study types of things of light and, you know, everything like that. Those are some of my favorite looks, which is kind of like the opposite of what I do as a, you know, kind of a pen and ink illustrator. But glad you like it, Caroline. Okay. For those who have lots of detail. Well, that'll be perfect, Debbie, for like stamping and watercolor applications there, because we'll have the benefit of the capturing all the detail of the stamped imagery, but then we'll have the whatever the absorbency and whatever that porousness of you know, the way watercolors should be, right? Crayon watercolors and test. You know, I'm wondering if I have some watercolors. Now that I'm kind of reading this, I think did I use some watercolors at one point in time in a class? It was like a one-time class or something like that. I'm starting to trigger some memories here. Let me see. Legion mini pads, hot press, cold press, black sketch. Huh. Legion mini pads. Okay, I'm gonna forget like that completely. Not because it's not important, but I just have a really bad memory. So Legion. Okay. Tiny ink pads, like 1 by 2 inch. Wow. Thanks, Patty. Let's see. The small cubes of distress ink. They come empty, so you can add any Oh, okay. Huh. I'll have to take a look at this. So there's like, what was it called again? I'll read up through the chat again there and something like that. Ink spots. Okay, wait. Okay, so ink spots. Sticks, pencils, and a travel set for camping. Once dry, they are permanent. Okay. I think someone mentioned that to me. So once they're dry, are we saying that those won't go back into solution then if you add water to it then? Yeah, something's happening like on a chemical level, you know, once it's kind of water's been added to it. Okay, the Stacy Parks are great for watercolor, and that they don't smear then, right, Bonnie? Is that what you're saying? Legion. Okay, the 2.5 by 3.5 mini pads. That sounds interesting. That almost sounds like sounds almost like the ATCs or something like that. Okay. Got it. Watercolor is my weakness. They do a lot of... So, Debbie, have you used these metallic watercolors, or did we already ask? Has anyone used these any kind of metallic watercolors before? I think so these are kind of, aren't these like, I guess these aren't really like them because I thought those, again, I thought those radiant pearls were a mica based, like a water based, right? Water based, mica infused, whatever, with the binder in it, right? So those just were in solution where these ones are already in pads. Unless this is a different thing in here. I mean, these ones aren't mica, right? That's actually metallic, right? Because these are like glitter or something. Unless it's like a colored paint and then the shimmery part is, something like mica. I have no idea. But anyway. I don't know if anyone has anything like this or has done any examples of the metallic painting. Please post to the Stampscapes Facebook group. Not the Stampscapes page, but the Stampscapes, the group in there. Or somebody of you. Some of these things are taken. Some people aren't on like social media, which I understand. But if you have any kind of examples like that you want to share, that stuff that we're talking about, you can email me to me, and if it's okay with you, then I can post to the group, or something like that. Which I've done before at times. Or some people, I don't use Facebook anymore. But if you don't mind me kind of sharing it with others, you can email it to me, and I'll get it posted up. And if you don't want, you can do it. I can post it on, say it's just from someone, or you can put your name on it or something like that. But if you have any cool techniques or something like that, it'd be great to see for myself as well. I'd love to see it. I've used metallics. They are good for accents or brilliant for northern lights on black watercolor paper. That sounds really cool. Yeah, the metallics on black. Huh. That sounds interesting. That gives me some ideas there too. If you use some of that on metallics for night scenes, like on a water scene or something like that, that shimmery type of, if it shows up. So these things would show up on black paper, I wonder. Or does it just depend on how thick you're applying it on there? Have we done metallic watercolors? Okay, so I don't know. I got to see those again. I don't remember which ones are which. Or if someone didn't do it like in 3D sometime, Linda, take a short video of it where they're kind of like turning it, where you can see it kind of reflect. Sometimes you can't tell on there. Just on the still shot sometimes. We've done metallic. Have we? Oh, so you're talking. Oh, yeah. So Linda, are you talking about the? Where are they? Are we talking about like these pearlescents like this? If so, I completely forgot. These are liquid acrylics right here in those shimmering tones. I completely forgot about that. But I got some of those years ago. Yeah, and here's another one like this. This one says permanent, and it's this golden tone like that. Oh, good, it's still in solution. But yeah, I forgot. If that's what you're referring to. I have a weakness for metallics. I was mentioning this before, but I had collected a lot of the like pearl something papers, but the okay, I already forgot the names of these papers. I haven't been thinking about them for a while, but those iridescent types of papers, metallic papers, not a lot of foils, But they've always had the Stardream papers. I had collected a lot of that stuff, so I like that shimmery look to it, And so when I saw stuff like this, you know, I thought that would be pretty cool. It's not, you know what I mean? It looks like a certain color, but it's more reflective than, your dye-based inks or something like that. So I thought maybe we can use some of that. But I don't know, maybe you used it like once or something like that. You're rethinking Facebook. Oh, only to follow yeah, craft sites there, yeah. By the way, if anyone ever friends me on Facebook, and if they don't use it, now I'm going to recognize your name on there, Sheila. If you like friend me or something like that. But if someone, friends me and I say, because I'm getting a lot of friend requests by accounts that have like long since like been active or something like that, and sometimes when I accept the friend thing, it's like I get this generic kind of like phishing kind of IM like, and it always says something like, "Hey, how's it going?" That's when I know it's just someone that's accessed someone's account, or they're trying to duplicate someone else's account. But if you just send me an IM, just hey, this is your stamping friend, or refer to rubber stamping, I'll know it's legit. If I don't add someone as a friend right off the bat. Metallic shine on black paper. Okay. Debbie, have you posted stuff up with the any techniques on there? What would we do? Would we stamp out the imagery in white on black and then add in like some of the metallics maybe, you know, with like a paintbrush or something like that? I wonder how that would look. Like for a winter scene or something like that, something like blue tones, metallic blue tones, like on top of black, but then stamp out the imagery in white, maybe like a reverse. But then if it's on matte paper, or if we stamp it out in white, it's going to absorb into it. We'd have to like emboss in white, wouldn't we? Or something like that. Unless it's on shiny, shiny black paper. Try the Mini Legion black watercolor paper with metallics. Okay, I'll give that a try, Debbie. I also have some black. I don't have black watercolor paper, but I have black matte paper like cardstock that I can just try to, I can test for opacity on that. I'll try that too. But I'll take a look at the Legion. Yeah, the watercolor papers. Is it like a tablet of them then? Or is it like a block? One has to be careful. Oh, from Facebook. Did you lose your account or something like that, Linda? Or you couldn't access it for a while? Is that what happened? Clean out the best. Okay. You don't accept friends unless family. They don't even say Kevin though on Facebook. It just says, "Hey, how's it going?" Just to do metallic on the black paper and then stamp the black over the top of it. Oh, okay. Huh. As long as you don't use too much water. Are you talking about for the paints then? The metallic paints, Debbie? And is that because it would be too diluted to show up on the top of black, in terms of the pigment, you mean? So go for like a thicker application of it? Hmm. I guess that makes sense. So getting it to the right consistency then, right? Just nothing too thin. I guess if it's like too thin, then you're just going for something really subtle. Warm brownies. We're coming over, Sheila. I hope you made a. We need 20 of them for everyone here. with seconds. Metallic water. Okay. All right. All right, folks. I am going to go outside and spray this before it sets up too much, and so I can retain that vibrancy in there. It's already starting to get a dull out a little bit with the as this dries here. So, and like I mentioned before, I like to kind of hit it before it dries completely, and I think it gets locked down pretty well in terms of that intensity. So. Keep that in mind if you're ever doing like super layered tones like that in your transparent colors. Now, you know, transparent colors, alcohol are transparent too, but I don't think you need to hit it as much. And if you're only using Marvies like that on there, you don't have to hit it. You can hit it whenever, they can dry or something like that. But the other ones, inks, like the Distress inks, or the Ranger inks in general, Distress and Adirondack and all that type of stuff. It has some kind of other thing in the binder that if I layer them up over the top, it gets this kind of frosty sheen on the top, which when you spray it, a lot of times it disappears, but I think it just kind of keeps that away from the get-go if you spray seal it and lock everything down just before it dries. So anyway, spam posting, and they tried to take, oh my God, yeah. Never click on the spam postings on Facebook, you mean? There was a link? Never click on anything. Unless you're in the Facebook group, that's always safe. But we'll never have like a link and then someone says, hey, where did you get that? And, you know, we post a link to say, okay, it's this thing, you know, in terms of like a whatever, like, you know, these papers or something like that, these watercolor papers or something like that. All right. All right. Have a great rest of night, everyone. And yeah, we'll try out some of these new mediums here, new for me, and maybe we'll get back to, I don't know, we'll try some of these other Pearlex metallics again sometime that I completely forgot about. $3.51, not too bad.